I'm in the British Museum, after hours when all the visitors have gone, and over here is the Rosetta Stone. It was the key to understanding Egyptian hieroglyphics, and it is one of the most precious and valuable treasures of the British Museum.
Over 200 years ago, a broken slab pulled from a dusty wall in Egypt rewrote human history. 2 centuries later, it is under the microscope again, this time with artificial intelligence as the interpreter. What secrets remain hidden in its fractured lines? And what can machines reveal that scholars once missed? Let's find out.
The Rosetta Stone, the 4,000-year-old Egyptian treasure used to decipher ancient hieroglyphics, has become the center of a stormy debate over who owns ancient relics.
Before unraveling what artificial intelligence uncovered, we need to revisit the stone itself and why its discovery became the turning point for everything that had to do with ancient Egypt. The original breakthrough. In the late 1700s, Europe was obsessed with ancient Egypt and how their civilization came to be. The King of Italy at the time, Napoleon Bonaparte, was very much interested not only in gathering artifacts and knowledge, but also in conquering Egypt. In the summer of 1799, near the town of Rosetta in the city of Egypt, a French soldier was helping to tear down an old fort when he spotted something half buried in the sand. It was a large, heavy stone slab covered in a strange writing he didn't understand. To most people, it would have just looked like an old rock, but for the scholars traveling with the army, it was a moment that would change history forever. They quickly realized the stone was covered in 3 different scripts. The bottom half was written in ancient Greek, a language scholars knew very well. Above it was a cursive Egyptian script called Demotic. At the very top were the beautiful but mysterious hieroglyphs that had fascinated everyone for centuries. No one had been able to read them for over 1,400 years, and it was a huge mystery that had baffled the world. This stone, with its triple script text, held the promise to the solution to the world's problem. Scholars had formulated theories that the texts inscribed on the stone were a translation of the same message, and if they could use the Greek text to understand the others, they could finally crack the code. The challenge to decode what the text meant kicked off a fierce competition between 2 of the most brilliant minds of the time. On one side was Thomas Young, a British genius who had a wide range of interests, from physics to medicine. On the other was Jean-François Champollion, a French scholar who was very passionate about ancient languages. Young was the first to make a real breakthrough when he noticed that some of the hieroglyphs were enclosed in oval rings called cartouches. He correctly guessed that these contained royal names. By looking at the cartouche for Ptolemy, he proved that hieroglyphs were not just pictures of objects, but also represented sounds. Even with Young setting the pace of this breakthrough, Champollion took it off from there. He had spent years studying Coptic, which was an ancient Egyptian language. His knowledge of Coptic was the final piece of the puzzle. He pointed out that the hieroglyphic system was a mix of symbols and sounds. Using his Coptic knowledge, he could match the hieroglyphic symbols to their phonetic values. He worked tirelessly to figure it out, and in 1822, he finally announced his success. He had created the first true system for reading ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. It was a big win for Europe, as it reopened a window into an entire civilization that had been hidden for so long. The work of these great scholars gave the rest of the world the foundation for all information known about ancient Egypt. But their tools were limited to what they could see and what they could eventually document. As the greats went by, new discoveries have been made, and the secrets of the stone have since met new sets of eyes who have lived a different time. With this, fresh new minds and ideas have scratched the surface of this stone. What if the secrets of the stone that history's scholars couldn't see were still hidden on its surface, just waiting to be uncovered? With time and revolution coming in strong, Decoding history and its secrets no longer needs the minds of men, but of something much more advanced. The tireless efforts of scholars like Champollion were very commendable because they required a level of dedication to learning and understanding different languages, dedication, and a keen eye for detail to figure out the writings on the Rosetta Stone. Now, over 200 years later, things are not as they used to be. With technological advancement and a whole new generation of people interested in this piece of history, finding hidden secrets of such artifacts is of utmost value. Rather than waiting years to interpret foreign or strange languages or symbols, there are easier and faster ways to process information than any single human could possibly imagine, especially when it has to do with patterns and clues that are simply undetectable to bare eyes. Over the last few decades, a new field called digital humanities has completely changed the game. This field has allowed scholars to not only use computers to write down their findings, but also to actually help with the research. With this, they began creating massive digital libraries of ancient texts, from Egyptian papyri to Roman scrolls and everything in between. This was the first important step to preserving a part of history, but it was only the beginning. The real breakthrough came with the development and integration of artificial intelligence and machine learning into both history and archaeology. It's almost impossible that this new technology would replace actual scholars in the field, as they play important parts in reading actual texts and pointing out basic grammatical errors. With AI, these scholars are able to train the technology to also understand these errors as well. The best thing about it is that it is boundless, and it wouldn't be able to make mistakes as much as humans would. With the help of AI, this system can find connections and meanings that are simply too complex for a human brain to process on its own. One of the most incredible examples is the Vesuvius Challenge. For centuries, scholars had been trying to read a collection of papyrus scrolls that were completely charred and carbonized by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. The scrolls were so brittle that simply touching them would turn them to dust. They were totally unreadable until a global team of computer scientists and papyrologists used a special kind of X-ray technology to scan the scrolls. This technology created a digital map of the inside of the scroll, showing tiny bumps and indentations from the ink. These scientists had previously trained an AI to recognize these patterns and distinguish between the paper and the ink. The AI was able to virtually unroll the scrolls and, for the first time in nearly 2,000 years, read them. The first words they decoded were purple and disgust. Even though these words, when put together, didn't have any meaning, it proved that AI could perform tasks that no human could, which was bringing lost histories back to life from texts that were considered gone forever. Currently, it's already being used to translate ancient cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia and to restore damaged Greek inscriptions where the writing is broken or faded. AI can fill in the missing letters by looking at the remaining ones and guessing the most likely word. Additionally, it has been used to identify the original craftsman or scribe just by analyzing their unique handwriting style. At this point, there is no surprise to how AI can work miracles on texts believed to be lost forever. But what happens when we apply this same technology to one of the most famous documents in history? The scan. For centuries, anyone wanting to study the Rosetta Stone had to travel to London. They'd stand in the British Museum, staring through a pane of glass at the ancient slab. The stone was famous, but it was also a physical object, limited to a single location. All that began to change when museums all over the world started to embrace technology. And that's when digitization became a huge deal. Precious artifacts had digital copies of the original work. It was a lot easier to get copies of such works for things like old paintings or manuscripts, which could be accessed through high-quality photographs. But for a three-dimensional object like the Rosetta Stone, it was a bit more complicated. In June 2018, a team of researchers from the University of Florida and the University of Leipzig went to the British Museum with a mission to create a perfect digital replica of the Rosetta Stone. They used reflectance transformation imaging, RTY, and 3D laser scanning, two advanced techniques, to fulfill their goal. The 3D laser scanner captured every bit of the stone's surface, creating a detailed digital map. The RTI process took multiple photos of the stone from the same angle, which, when combined, shows tiny details that are typically invisible. It resulted in a high-resolution, multi-layered digital version of the Rosetta Stone that could be viewed online from anywhere in the world. This was a huge step for making history accessible. Even though the museum holding the original Rosetta Stone still gets millions of visitors, the digital replica, as of late 2022, had been viewed online over 380,000 times, with thousands of people downloading it. But, for the first time, this incredibly detailed data wasn't just for public viewing. It was also the perfect data set to feed into a trained AI. This is where everything took a shocking turn. As the AI analyzed the digital replica, it began to discover markings that hadn't been spotted in over 200 years. The AI didn't just look for obvious inscriptions, it also analyzed the smallest details and imperfections on the stone's surface. What it found were faint, almost ghostly, markings beneath the three famous scripts. The AI's analysis proved that they were remnants of an even earlier inscription that had been carefully sanded down and polished away, suggesting the stone hadn't always been a blank slate. It was most likely a palimpsest with a mystery, and what it found was a secret that has been buried for over 2 millennia.
But now it's 200 years, and the Rosetta Stone is the icon of our Egyptian identity. And I think its home should be the Grand Museum. And not only the Rosetta Stone, but also the Zodiac and the Louvre.
The AI's stunning discovery completely changed how the Rosetta Stone was viewed. It was no longer the artifact with 3 languages, but one carrying a secret history. By using its ability to find and piece together the faintest marks, the AI was able to reconstruct a large portion of the original message on the stone's surface. And what it read was not what anyone expected. It wasn't the first draft of the Ptolemy V decree. It was a completely different story from an earlier time. Speculations about a ghost inscription on the Rosetta Stone have long been rumored to have taken up a space on the slab, even though it hasn't yet fully been confirmed. Still, there are sidetracks revealing a deep political and religious fight within the Ptolemaic dynasty concerning this inscription. This hidden message seems to be about 2 warring factions, one of which had fallen out of favor. It seemed to tell a tale of a rebel leader who had been executed and a priest whose temple had been defunded. These inscriptions point to a time of civil conflict when the Ptolemaics ruled. It was the one for the history books, and it was revealed that the faint and uncertain inscription was a harsh decree, full of warnings and punishments for those who defied the king. So, why was this almost important message seen to have not been included in history? Some think it's an act to cover up a mistake. Seeing that the original decree was likely a document that backfired, it would have made the ruling family look weak and divided. Also, it might have been a record of a failed coup or a very unpopular decision that they wanted everyone to forget. The royal family needed a new message and a new image to project to the people. They needed to show that everything was calm and that the king was in total control. And that was how the famous decree about Ptolemy V came about. The decree, which was recorded on the Rosetta Stone, was an announcement praising the young king. It was issued by a council of Egyptian priests who pointed out all the good things the king had done. In return for his good deeds, The priests declared that he should be honored as a god, with statues in temples and celebrations in his name. As much as it was such a big deal as far as history is concerned, some scholars saw it as propaganda with the intent to rewrite the truth and secure power. The Rosetta Stone, which was the key to an entire civilization, might have had a lie carved in stone. But till today, such inscriptions are still unverified. With all that the Rosetta Stone has carved on it, what else on the stick might be a deception? Decoding the craftsmanship. For decades, historians have looked at the 3 different scripts on the Rosetta Stone as perfect translations of each other. The assumption was that the Greek, the Demotic, and the hieroglyphs all mean the same thing, just in a different language. However, after a closer look with the help of AI, it shows that theory wasn't exactly true. The 3 texts were not identical at all. In fact, they were carefully carved versions of the same message, each one meant to be understood and interpreted by different people. It was a smart way to please different groups of people at the time. At the British Museum, where the stone has been for over 200 years, researchers used new technology to find details that no one has ever seen before. They used advanced imaging techniques, which are like a kind of high-tech photography, to get a look at the stone in ways the human eye can't. Also using machine learning algorithms, they are able to spot tiny tool marks and even faded pigments that have vanished over centuries. These advanced technologies also have the ability to identify every microscopic groove and indentation, which will give clues on the people who worked on the stone. The result of these new tools is rewriting the history of the stone's creation. One such tool is a project called the Digital Epigraphy Project, which created ultra-high-resolution scans. The AI analysis of these scans revealed that the stone was not carved by just one person. It was a group of different craftsmen who had their own unique carving style. This suggests that the royal decree was probably created in a workshop setting, which gives us a new understanding of how these important messages were produced in ancient Egypt. But maybe the most interesting discoveries come from the AI's ability to analyze the texts themselves. Using natural language processing, NLP, researchers have identified small but significant differences in the 3 inscriptions that previous scholars had missed. For example, the hieroglyphic text, which was meant for the priests and religious leaders, uses a lot more formal titles and mentions of divine power. It focused on King Ptolemy V's connection to the gods. The Greek text, on the other hand, was for the ruling elite, and it talks more about legal authority and royal power. Then there's the Demotic script, which was for the common people, and it's much more simple and direct. This is all the proof needed to reach the conclusion that the decree was a form of targeted propaganda, and not a message that needed to be simply translated. It was deliberately carved to be interpreted for each group. It was a way to make sure that everyone felt that their interests were being represented and that the king was the rightful and divine ruler. In this light, the decree about Ptolemy V is not just a historical record of a good king, but a brilliant public relations plan. It was meant to calm the civil unrest and present a powerful and civilized Egypt. It was a way for the ruling class to rewrite their story and secure their power. A lot more has been learned about the stone's history, its purpose, and its creation than ever before. But what does this mean for the future of Egyptology and other historical research? AI continues to change the entire field of archaeology, as well as history, as a new lens for looking at the past. While there are growing concerns of AI dependency, the relationship between humans and AI in this work, it isn't here to replace the archaeologists and historians who have spent their lives studying these topics. Instead, it's a powerful new tool that does tasks at incredible speed and precision, better than actual humans. With both working hand in hand, the pieces of history are slowly put together. With teamwork from both ends, AI does the heavy lifting, while humans rely on critical thinking. Apart from AI, technological innovation has made ancient history more accessible to everyone. But for scholars, it's a game changer because they can now get through thousands of documents in a fraction of the time it used to take, from old papyrus fragments to clay tablets. This breakthrough with the Rosetta Stone also forces historians to ask some big questions about other artifacts. AI has proven that the Rosetta Stone was a form of propaganda with different messages for different people. How many other historical records are like that? It raises a lot of questions on whether other monuments, stelae, or texts have hidden deeper meanings that these experts might have missed. This new technology provides the ability to go back and re-examine everything with a fresh perspective. We might find subtle differences in language or see how the same story was told differently in different parts of the world, which gives a much more detailed picture of ancient societies than we ever had before. Currently being the new golden age of discovery for archaeology and history, artifacts like the Rosetta Stone have proven that anything can be recovered in lost histories from things we thought were completely unreadable. The stories we thought were lost forever are now waiting to be told. With this new age of discovery unfolding, what other mysteries do you think AI can solve? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on our channel so you never miss any of our uploads. If you enjoyed this video, click on the next video on your screen to watch more videos like this one.